Hey, what's up, Young Kings? Good evening time for your morning motivation. It's been kind of my vibe today. Just wanted to kind of let that play. The art of worship is just, I've had an attitude of worship today. It's had a great day. Um, had to work today, had a large inspection at work, and my team performed admirably well. I mean, they did well. I've been pushing them hard over the last few months to get ready for this inspections, and probably ruffled a few people's feelings by being intentional about the efforts. And I tell you what, it showed in how we performed on this inspection. So I'm kind of proud of that. But beyond that, today was just on my way to work. I work about an hour away from work, and today I was intentional just to commune with the Most High. Didn't turn the music on, didn't have an audiobook on, just wanted to kind of be in silence and I realized, like, in that communion with the Most High, like, it's hard to be in communion with the Most High and still feel low about what was me in the situation or whatever it may be. But so I think that's something in itself. Worship can take you to a place that no other thing can do for you. So it's definitely was the attitude of worship today, an attitude of gratitude for all the things that the Lord has allowed to happen to me, both good and bad. So definitely that in that worship today and in that communion with the Most High, there was a theme that came out in there, and it was telling me, like, I'm going through a shift. There's something shifting in my life, and it is in the physical, and I know I'm going through the process of shifting from one state to the next. It is mentally. I'm trying to shift and graduate to a better understanding of who I am, and I'll start there. I was like, on this journey that we're going on, I'm not your teacher. I'm not your professor. I'm a student along the way. I'm not here to try to say as though I got it together. Like, I'm on this pilgrimage as well. So I'm not here teaching you. I'm inviting you into my world as I travel this journey. Because if I'm going through something, 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, you're going through something or you're about to be going through something. And these things can be beneficial. But going back, it was like there was a shift that was happening in my life. And it was just like the word shift. And there's a change in the atmosphere. So I started to look at what could be the possible meaning behind that shift. And as I'm traveling on a highway, my car is accelerating to get from the resident speed to the highway speed, and the car is shifting. And my spirit quickened me. It's like, hey, during this season in your life, like, one or two things can happen. Either you could put your foot on the gas and you're going to accelerate through this thing, and you're going to get to a higher rate of speed, and you're going to be cruising. It didn't say it'd be easy because you got to shift through gears, or you can pull your feet off and you're going to decelerate and you're going to slow down, eventually stop. So there was an opportunity for shift to be happening in my life from that perspective. And then I get to the computer. I'm getting ready for this inspection, sending out email, and on the computer there's a shift button, and the shift has the ability to change your lowercase to uppercase letter. So there's a shift that's potentially happened there. It's like some things that used to be small in your life. Now it's time to mature and grow up and get a little more wisdom and understanding. Some things that used to be lowercase, now is going to be a big deal for you to do that. So there's going to be a transition in my life, and if you're going through this transition and there's opportunities for you to shift, put in the comments shift, that you're going to make that shift as well, because it's more of a transition from where you were to where you're going. Who you are today is not who you will be tomorrow. And if you're going to make that shift, it's got to be about being intentional. And I noticed with some of the people who watch these videos, y'all kind of selfish with the likes and the comments. Spread the word. We're trying to grow this page this year, and it doesn't hurt you to like something, or even if you don't like it, put the thumbs down. Give a comment or something. Recommend it to your friends or something of that nature, so we can grow this channel. I'm not trying to grow it for a monetary reason. I don't need that. I just think that there's information that's contained in these things that would be beneficial to us. So there's a few things that's shifting, and a lot of times people won't recognize the shift that you're trying to make, or the change or the load that you're carrying. And as I was reflecting today, I remember a call. I was out in California as a private. We're at the National Training Center, NTC, and we were practicing battle drills and stuff of that nature. And we had going on this assault, and we were like 2, 3 in the morning, and we're walking on the side of this hill, this mountain, to try to be stealth, and in the hours of concealed darkness and stuff of that nature. And I'm a private, and we got these big rucksacks on our backs, these backpacks, and it's carrying our goods, our either our food, our clothing, and just the stuff we need to sustain us. But on top of that, I had to carry the radio. I was the RTO, the radio transmitter operator. So above the standard 45, 50, 60 pounds, I had the radio in my backpack with extra batteries. So I had an additional 25, 30 pounds on my back. And I remember the RTO's got to stay close to the commander, because the commander needs to be able to make the radio call. And it was nighttime, and the commander's running back and forth. And, obviously I got to be running back and forth as well. But when we're walking, and it's kind of on an incline, you're walking kind of sideways. And I remember I was walking, and I slipped and I fell, and I got down. I was like, it was actually painful for a little bit, and I kind of paused. But when I slipped and fell, I guess that the commander didn't see that I slipped and fell. But when he did turn, he seen that I was down on the ground, and he came and he yelled at me. He said, "Private Morgan, get up. This ain't no time to be taking a nap. This ain't no time to be resting. We got a mission to go." And all he could see is that was down on the ground, and that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, but that I was in a position that wasn't conducive to us accomplishing the mission. His concern wasn't what I stumbled, or was I okay, or anything as this. It was just about the mission. And I say that to say this: a lot of times when we're shifting, people will make indictments about you being in a particular situation and circumstances, but they don't understand how you got there, and they won't. You don't need to really explain to them. One thing that my dad did tell me at an early age is about excuses of justifications. He says, real friends don't need them, and enemies don't want to hear them. So really, you should never be explaining yourself or trying to justify yourself to anybody. And this is part of the thing about being true to yourself, finding out who we are. And if you're true to yourself, then you can be truly open and honest with people around you. So on the last video, I did talk about, I think we ended up with identify what you value. And we went through the list of honesty, compassion, loyalty, and I talked to you about some of those things. And that thing was on my mind some more after I ended that video. So it led me to go deeper into one of those things. And shout out to Cam. He sent me a text, and I got it. And it stated something simple. And it says, "Stop giving CPR to dead situations." And I mean, that resonated with me, because it's like, really, some situations are dormant and dead in our lives that we no longer need to provide energy or things to. And if we're honest with ourselves, they have stopped serving us a long time ago, and we're holding on. So if you're holding on to something, that's kind of a detour inside the detour. Stop giving CPR to dead situations. It's time to breathe life into yourself and into your destiny, into your future. So this Operation Lion King, the battle of self-discovery. When we're on this battle of self-discovery, one thing we got to recognize, and I keep mentioning, it's like, what are we looking for? We're looking for ourselves and who we are, and just kind of what is it that's within us that we can contribute to this world. And it's not only that, but it's not from an empowering perspective to say you can be selfish, but it's also from another perspective. If we don't get to where we're going, who do we have to blame? The same person you're looking for, yourself. Like, if you are not going to take this thing serious, and you're just going to go by go with the flow. When you get to that end of that destination or that journey, wherever it may be, the only person you will have to blame is yourself. So this battle of self-discovery is important because this is where it starts from. There used to be a saying. There is a saying that says, my biggest enemy is my inner me." Like you got to start being an ally with yourself. Like you got to change how you talk to yourself. And if you change how you talk to yourself, then it would change what you accept and how people talk to you. So there's a detour that we're doing. So I'm not going to move past identify what we value. I'm going to dive deeper in it because I'm not in a hurry. We're going to be on this thing for a while. There's no need to rush through this because let's be intentional and make sure we get all of this because this is I'm a student on this as well. This is driving me into an area of me finding out more about myself and how do I navigate through these stages in my life and how do I be transparent about this process that I'm going through. So we won't go too fast, but we won't go too slow. We'll go at the pace that I dictate. With that being said, there is a scripture that God laid on my heart this morning in regards to shifting and it's a leap how I connected it to shifting, but I thought it was important because we've been talking about the scripture in Matthew, in Luke, where they were fishing and they had failed and stuff of that nature, and then Yeshua got in the boat, pushed them out into the deep, gave them a word, and then told them to execute and cast their net on the right side of the boat in the deep water, and they were successful. So in this verse right here is Matthew 8, and we're going to start at verse 23. And it says, when he got into the boat, the disciples followed him. So they're back in the boat. So, I mean, I get a lot from that. It's like this journey of self-discovery. The Most High need to be in the boat. He is in the boat, So if he's in your boat, then things are going to be okay, as we were indicating with the fishing. And we're about to find out in this verse as well. It says, so when he got into the boat, the disciples followed him. And behold, there arose a great storm at the sea. So they got in the boat, and all of a sudden, things started to go awry. There's not a storm, but a great storm. So that the boat was being covered with waves and water, and Yeshua himself was asleep. So I was reading that, and it's like, hey, this thing is going on. Turbulence is going on. Waves are crashing over the boat and getting into things. And it seems like Yeshua is asleep. And I know at times I feel like the storms in my life is going on. And I'll be wondering like, Lord, are you asleep? Wake up. Don't you see I'm about to perish? And that's the same thing they had. And it says, and Yeshua himself was asleep. And they came to him and woke him up like, hey, Lord, get up, saying, save us, Lord, we are perishing. So they were concerned like their storm was going to overtake them. And, so they figured that it's time for them to wake up the Most High and say, hey, look, we're about to perish. And you sitting here resting like nothing's going on in our lives. And we're not about to have any lives. And he said to them, why are you afraid? You of little faith. You of little faith. Then he got up and he rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. So it's like they got into the situation, and the situation was just about to overtake them, and they didn't have faith. And if I'm honest with myself, there's times in my life where I haven't had faith. It's like, Lord, what are you doing to me? Like, do you see what's going on? And the reality of it is, a lot of things, the storms that I'm in is storms that I caused myself, but then I want the Lord to bail me out. But he was merciful and he called them a little faith. But the reality of it is, it's like when you think God is not at work, God is sovereign. He's in control, and he's going to make everything work out to the good that are called according to his name. So that's what I was getting for shifting. So when we talked about being honest and we're shifting, it's about just kind of being honest with ourselves. So I started looking up, like, what are some things that we can do to start being honest with ourselves? And then I read an article on it, and it talks about being 100% honest with yourself is the prerequisite for self-improvement. Like, in order for us to get to the self-discovery, we're gonna have to be honest with ourselves. That is a precursor to what we need to do to get things established. And then one of the first steps in there was like acknowledge both good and bad. Um, the simple truth is like you can't ignore good things or bad things happening to you. Like you got to acknowledge both. Don't just be one in a life full of sunshine, vacations, and promotions and opportunities and stuff of that nature. You got to realize that some bad things will happen to your life. And then, the simple truth is that ignoring problems in your life doesn't fix them. Like there's a period of my life where especially my personal life, like I thought like if we just get past certain stages that everything else was going to be smooth sailing. And that's a lie from the pit of hell. Like no problems just go away. And reality is that a problem unaddressed normally becomes a bigger problem later. So you kind of build and it becomes a compound problem. Next thing you know, you got this thing that's going on that's too large to really salvage anything productive out of because you didn't deal with it while it was in its infancy stages. So be honest about the good and be honest about the bad. And there's this thing called radical acceptance. And then in the radical acceptance, is talk about acceptance of life never ending bullshit, meaning like you can't control things that's going to happen to you in your life. And we already been talking about response management. And I'll read this word for word. It says radical acceptance come from the insight that life will never stop throwing you bullshit and it's not your fault. Like you can't control everything that's going to happen. And it gives a list of things that you probably wish you could change. So a few things you probably wish you could change is how people think of you. Who find you attractive? Are you being, you can never change, you will want to change, always being healthy and never sick. What people say behind your back. Like if you can change that, I mean, those, don't even waste your mind thinking about changing that. Um, you can't change or you can't save someone from making their own bad decisions. Um, you can't change how you feel all the time. Like your emotions are real. You can't change that. You can't change your childhood experiences. Those things, anything that's happened in the past, those are things that are there. You just now got to deal with it. You can't never be offended. I mean, you will be offended at time, and you can't change how you physically look. There may be some attributes about you that you wish you could change, but the reality of it is there's power in accepting things that's outside of your power. So acknowledge both the good and the bad is the step to being honest with yourself. That's number one. Number two is take time to reflect. Every day, it talked about in this article about taking 5 to 10 minutes at the end of your day to sit back and reflect on how did your day go. Like, give yourself a grade, A, B, or C, or give yourself a 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, I did this, and then start questioning yourself, like, what could I have done better? Like, is there areas that I could have improved on? Like, I know that I mentioned on these videos, like, I deleted Facebook and Instagram off my phone. Now I still have it on my iPad, but I don't carry my iPad around everywhere with me. So by having it deleted off my phone, I'm not tempted to just go on there and just waste time looking at or scrolling or posting various different things. So being intentional. So 5 to 10 minutes each night to ask yourself, how are you doing? Ask yourself, how did I do today? And what could I have done better? And then you got to be honest with yourself. Like be truthful. Like don't give yourself an A when you know you really were, or C. Don't be gentle with yourself. So reflection, I'll read this word for word. It says reflection plays a key role in becoming a smarter thinker and a learner. Because as you sit back and you reflect at the end of the day what went well and what didn't go so well, then the next day you can be intentional about putting some extra effort to make sure that those areas now can be a little more productive, things of that nature. Number three, admit when you make mistakes. And I know no one's perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes. And I was just telling a soldier today that was struggling in a particular area. Failure is a part of success. Like, sometimes it takes that adversity to bring you to a point where you're really growing. And I have a saying about failure: I can't fail. Because even when I fail, or supposedly fail, I have successfully found out something that didn't work so I can begin again more intelligently. So you got to have your perspective change about what failure is and how that impacts you in your life. So admit that you make mistakes. Only a person who admits their mistakes can learn from them and correct them. And then the reality of it is, the bigger the mistake, the more potential there is for growth and development. Like, you can learn a lot from a big mistake, and you can do kind of an assessment on what your train of thought was, what led to that. And the thing about failing is, like, when you fail, you got a front row seat in there. So if you're honest with yourself, you will know when things start to go south or when things start to turn or deteriorate because you're in it. And there's sometimes that you're in the midst of it and you're just going with it. You're hoping that it doesn't end the way it does, but you haven't done anything or put input anything to change it. So then you're going to eventually get that result of failure or setback or disappointment. So you got to realize, like, you are in control of this. So admit that you make mistakes. Number 4 is pay attention to your feelings. Um, Understand how you respond to things. You know, you're not emotionless. You know, there's a lot of times I repress my feelings and emotions, and I try to keep them down. But even me, that they come up every once in a while. Like, sometimes during this process, I was an emotional wreck. Um, but it's one thing to be aware, pay attention to them, and to be truly honest with yourself. You have to accept your emotional self. Like, don't just try to create the best version of yourself and project your best self, living your best life. You know, that's false. That's falsehood. You got to be honest with yourself. What are you vulnerable at? What are some things that you're emotionally weak at and distraught? Because if you don't understand that, when they come, it's gonna sucker punch you, and it's gonna get you that shot in the gut where you're gonna lose your breath. It could take you off track, and it can derail you. But if you understand it, then you can start seeing the signs, and you can start building around it. So, but at the same time, it's like questioning your feelings. Like, are your feelings, sometimes they can lead you down a path that you don't need to go. So be aware of that, like with your feelings, like question them. Like, why do I feel this way? Like my counselor, when I was going through this process, she asked me, and a few things about my counselor. She told me, she said, hey, if you ever get opportunity to get back and you decide to get back with your ex, you're gonna have to find a new counselor because I'm not wanting to sign up for that because I think that's a toxic relationship for you. That's not the only person that told me. My pastor, at the time we were attending church, he said, I don't believe in divorce, but if you got one, I would understand. Once again, I didn't get one. I was one being divorced. And then once again, her father, right before he passed, he sat us down and he says, look, um, what you're doing to him is the same thing I love your mother. You starve him of affection and you need attention and stuff of that nature. And he was saying, I would have left you a long time ago. And this is her father. So, various different people have tried to indicate to me, like, hey, this is not a healthy environment for you. But me not knowing myself or loving myself enough, I still was going to stay. And to be honest, if she wasn't divorced with me, I still would be unhappily married. So I guess I got to kind of thank her for having the courage to do something that I didn't. But anyways, pay attention to your feelings, question them. And then number 5, to be honest with yourself, find someone you can trust and be open with. And I think that's critical, young kings, because it's important. And we talked about this being an Operation Lion King, kind of restoring the Lion King. In the movie Lion King, Simba, once he was announced that he was going to be the king and stuff of that nature, the zebras and everybody bowed down and things of that nature. But, Scar, his uncle, wasn't even there. So it cuts off to a part in the movie where Simba is going to tell Scar that he's going to be this king. And, he started sharing with them, hey, I'm going to be king and this and that. And Scar, he wasn't too excited about that. Obviously, he started to plot and plan for his demise and try to undermine his kingship and his rulership. So, and I say that it's like, find someone you can trust, because Simba, in his immaturity, he was just going to share his excitement with somebody else. and he was sharing it with the enemies. And when you share with that, then some people who you think are on your team, they're just collecting information about you so they can then turn around and use it against you. Like for me in these videos, some people would try to throw things that I said in this video back at me. But at the same time, it's like, hey, you can't use that against me because I'm transparent. And that, I can see if I was trying to hide something, but the reality of it is I'm growing and I'm getting back to finding someone you can be open with, because I have that. I have friends in Cam and Eric that we share some of our deepest, darkest hurts, disappointment, and we share good moments as well. But there's several times that I've been on the phone with Eric or Cam, and Eric he's more blunt and more. He's like, hey, I got to call bullshit on that. I'll be saying something, and I'll be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is why I want to do this and this and that. And this is what this means. And he would just say, hey, Drew, no, I got to call bullshit on that. And he would tell me why he's calling bullshit on that. And he would go back into some conversation we have had and hold me accountable. So it's like, wow. But at the same time, I do that for them and say, hey, no, that's not in line with what you said you want to do. So you need to have those friends that you can be open and honest with, that truly love you and have your best interests in mind. Number 6, avoid overthinking and self-blame. Like, I have a problem with overthinking at times, and I know that's one of my thinking traps. My mind starts to connect dots that probably are not there, and my imagination starts to fill in things. So you got to realize sometimes there's meanings behind things that happen to you, and sometimes just bad things happen. So don't overthink. Sometimes bad things do happen to good people. Sometimes you do go through storms, and there will be things that's happened in your life. So I read this verbatim. It says, accept the fact and let go rather than thinking and trying to find the grand meaning behind something. Now, there may be a meaning behind some of the things you go through, but other times, there's the things that chew the meat, spit out the bone. Don't try to make this grand meaning out of everything and every experience within your childhood, within your adult, within your work life, within your personal life, within your spiritual life. There may be a time down the line that the light will go off and there may be an illumination or understanding of why you went through that. But the reality of it is bad things are going to happen to everyone. Number 7 is kind of connected to the feeling that says, know when to trust your gut. And there's this thing called intuition. Like, when something is off. You maybe can't put something to it all the time. But the reality of it is, you got to start to learn how to master your intuition, because that is your early warning system when things start to go awry. Like, I have achieved less than desirable results in a lot of areas of my life. And I realized, the more I'm starting to recognize when things start to go wrong. So in that recognition, and if you trust your intuition, you can start to change it before it ends up with a disastrous result. So learn to master your intuition. And number 8, one of the last ones, is accepting what you do not know. Donald Rumsfeld, one of the defense, he had he had 3 levels of known. And it just stuck with me for many years. So a lot of times I come over with quotes. It's something I read previously, and it just sticks with me in my head. But Donald Rumsfeld had 3 levels of known. He said, you got the known knowns, you got the known unknowns, and then you got the unknown unknowns. So the known knowns mean, like, what you know. I know 2 + 2 is 4. The known unknowns is like, there's something that you don't know. I can say, hey, I don't understand that. I know it's out there, but I don't understand it. So that's the second level of knowns. But the most dangerous level of knowns is unknown unknowns. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. And you are ignorant to the fact that you even need to know something. And that's a dangerous spot to be in, especially when it concerns to the self-discovery. So if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we're going to have to go through this process of, taking time to reflect, to understand why we think about something, and to make sure that we can mature in our understanding of ourselves. Because when it comes down to it, the one that's going to benefit from it is us. And when it comes down to it, the one who's going to suffer from it if we don't do it is us. So I didn't get to another one today, Young King. We're just over 30 minutes. But I tell you this, there may be times in your life where the storm is going on and it seems like the Lord is sleeping. But sometimes you gotta speak to the storm, because, as I mentioned before, we were created in this image. So sometimes you gotta say, "Peace, be still." So that storm is not there to overtake you. It's there to establish your faith. It's there to make sure that you can rest. Like when it said Yeshua got in the boat, he wasn't worried about the storm. He understood that. Like, he had a mission here on this earth, and he understood, like, hey, I'm at peace. That's a storm, and things around me can act up. So people around you can act a fool. They can act up. They can leave you. They can disappoint you. They could fire you. They could mistreat you. But as long as you have peace inside, you speak to that and say, "Peace, be still." And in the meantime, you make that shift. You make that shift. Some things that it's time to mature, that what used to be lowercase, it's time to be uppercase, and it's time to accelerate. This is not time to slow down. We're accelerating on this. We're about to get on this expressway called self-discovery, and we're going to grow, and we're going to go right. So be well, young kings. I'll be back on in a few days.